We all love a good secret when it comes to religious dogmas. Although withhold a lot of love of faith, they also carry a lot of controversies, infighting policies, and unfortunate disregards of many issues. So with that being said, let's look into it. Hi, my name is Jessa. Let's dive into the top 10 disturbing Vatican secrets leaked to the public. Number 10, the Vatican Leaks. Back in the beginning of 2012, there was something called the Vatican Leaks, also known as the Vatican Leaks scandals, that initially involved the leaked Vatican documents exposing corruption, blackmailing of homosexual clergies, and just a lot of tense private stuff that the church just did not want out in the public. The Vatican investigation of the leaks worked along several tracks with the Vatican magistrates pursuing the criminal investigations of the Vatican Secretariat of State and Administrative Investigation. In March 2012, Pope Benedict appointed a commission of cardinals to investigate the leaks, as the three cardinals appointed by the Benedict acted in a supervisory type of role, examining more than the narrow criminal scope of the leaks and interviewing much of the Vatican bureaucracy. They purportedly discovered the blackmail scandal, and after the scandal was released, more and more of the exposure of the blackmailing in the Vatican, as the controversial of the intimacy of the same gender became less controversial but in notion and discussion, although still very heavily against and discriminated. In an interview in 2014, a Vatican guide mentioned, "Here in Rome, it's very easy to meet a gay priest on a bus and in the church, and more importantly in the churches like St. Peter's." He continued to say that he has had also relationships with several priests, and saying, and quote, "It's even easier when you go to gay clubs and gay bars. You see them in the bars and then at the altar the following Sunday." Monsignor Lucio Balda, by contrast, was sentenced to 18 months in prison for leaking official documents, and his sentence began on the 22nd of August in a cell within the confines of the Vatican. Requests for the papal pardon for Balda were met with silence until the Pope Francis granted him clemency after he served maybe half of his jail sentence. Number 9, the Shroud of Turin. The Shroud of Turin is a linen cloth that bears the image of a man, including what appears to be the front and back impressions of a crucified body. It has been a subject of controversy and debate for centuries, with some believers suggesting that it is the burial cloth of Jesus Christ, while others view it as a medieval forgery. Many Christians believe that the shroud is the burial cloth that covered Jesus Christ after his crucifixions, as according to Gospels, the body of Christ was wrapped in a linen cloth before placed in a tomb. According to the Gospels, the body of Jesus was wrapped in a linen cloth before being placed in a tomb. However, controversies of this shroud became prevalent when the shroud went through scientific testing. Radiocarbon dating conducted in 1988 said the cloth originated between 1260 and 1390 AD, meaning the supposed date of Christ's crucifixion does not line up with the date of the shroud. Of course, people do not want to maybe theorize that the tech wasn't up to date, but the controversy continues with ongoing research debating among scientists, historians, and theologians. Some researchers explored new avenues of investigation, including the study of pollen and plant residues, forensic analysis, and advancements in imaging technology. The Catholic Church has not officially declared the Shroud of Turin as an authentic relic, leaving the questions of its authenticity open to individual belief. While some believers accept it as a powerful symbol of Jesus' crucifixions, others remain skeptical due to scientific challenges and uncertainties surrounding its origin. Number 8, Exorcism. If you've seen some demon boy movies like The Exorcism of Emily Rose or horror movies based on exorcism, you'd be vaguely interested to know that the Vatican has actually performed over 100,000 plus exorcisms. Although exorcisms is believed to be a practice only seen in horror movies and in the Middle Ages, the practice continues to be alive in the Catholic Church. Father Gabriel Amorth is a late priest and served as the chief exorcist of the Vatican, as he served 60 years and is believed to actually performed approximately 160,000 exorcisms. The exorcism rite, however, is not just limited to the late chief exorcist, as it's performed by various popes over the years. In 2018, BBC has reported the Vatican welcomed 250 priests from across the world to an annual workshop for exorcisms. Number 7, the Pagan Roots. Although it's not really a secret when it comes to celebrations like Christmas, Easter Sunday, and other Catholic-driven holidays, it's all surrounding the notion of Jesus Christ's life cycle. But interestingly enough, these dates also coincide with another type of calendar, the pagan calendar. Like Yule, or Yuletide, that celebrates the winter solstice, usually on the 21st, which lines up around the same time as Christmas. In a similar aspect in the Wiccan calendar, Ostara celebrates the spring equinox, which typically occurs in March, and Beltane that celebrates the transitioning of spring into summer. The reality that the early church had to merge itself with pagan practices and beliefs in order to blend in into the Roman society. In the rites and symbols of Roman Catholic Church, we can find surviving through rebrand pre-Christian myths, deities, festivals, and rituals. Here are the 3 Catholic practices that can be traced back into ancient pagan religion and cults. As an example, Mary, the Virgin Mother of Christ, is arguably the most important Catholic icon, as she is also an icon, to save for the Holy Trinity. She's also the amalgamation of the pre-Christian mother goddesses from antiquity. Such ranks includes Artemis, Demetri, Diana, Hera, Isis, and Venus, even Hecate, as she is represented as Maiden Mother Crone, which we see in the same stages as of Mary Mary's life in the holy text. The appropriation of these pagan practices and symbols of the Catholic Church shows how a social interests change and new institutions are established. Religious myths and practices are not so easily exterminated. Number 6, the disappearance of Pope John VIII. In the year 882, a pope named Pope John VIII was assassinated by his own clerics, and he was first poisoned, then he was clubbed to death. The motives have may been due to the fact that the exhaustion of the papal treasury, his lack of support among the Carolingians, as his gestures towards the Byzantines, and his failures to stop Saracen raids. Without the full protection of the powerful magnates or the Carolingian Empire, the papacy after John VIII's reigns became increasingly subject to machinations of greedy ambitions of rival clans of the local nobility. That being said, his remains are actually still unknown. Number 5. It may have been possible, or at this rate anything is possible in this world, that the Mafia dipped into a collection of plates of the Vatican Church. On the morning of September 28, 1978, Pope John I was actually found dead, sitting upright in his bed, after only being in office for 33 days. Although the Vatican officials claimed that the 65-year-old Pope had just died from a heart attack, there was never actually an autopsy, and at the time the Vatican definitely had ties to organized crime. Sure enough, in 1982, the Vatican Bank President Father Paul resigned from his post after a series of scandals exposed by the bank's ties to the Mafia. Eventually, the bank had to repay more than $200 million to its creditors, but Father John was actually never indicted of the crime. Although he was never suspected of being involved, several mysterious deaths, including Pope John Paul I, Marcinkus, which is the guy I mentioned, successfully claimed diplomatic immunity in the United States and retired in Arizona in 1990. He then died 16 years later, which, whatever he knew, probably died with him, as the rest of history is left unknown. Number 4, spread out. The Second World War was a cluster mess of trauma for everyone around the world, but you'd be surprised that when Germany had surrendered their occupants who led the atrocities of colonizing its surrounding neighboring countries, they were also forced to seek refuge outside of Europe, and the Vatican actually helped these guys escape. Thousands of these fascists managed to escape to South American countries, specifically in Argentina, Chile, and Brazil. Harvard researcher Gerald Steinescher wrote a book that shows travel documents pointing to the Vatican having to help them travel to these countries. Steinescher argues that it was actually done in the hopes of reviving European Christianity and the fear of growing influence of the Soviet Union. The Vatican, however, has refused to comment on these claims, but if you look at the influences in these countries of the ideologies from World War II Germany, it kind of lines up with the ideology of having whiter skin, wanting to have blue eyes and blonde hair. I mean, it could also have been the effects of colonization against the native indigenous, as it is very prevalent that the countries who do suffer from European colonization adapt a subconscious outlook that in order to survive, they need to look more white. For example, like nose jobs or injecting ascorbic acid and glutathione in order to change your skin from darker to whiter. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Number 3, vile money. Speaking of their involvement with the Second World War, it's not a secret that the Vatican Church, whose uphold moral ethics and virtues and values, are still responsible with so many criminal involvement, especially war crimes. We'll get to their involvement in slavery as well, because that's also gross. But what else is also gross is the fact that the financial gains they had over the 6 million lives lost in the Second World War. You heard me. In addition of aiding the escaped so-called thousands of German fascists from Europe, the Vatican was also involved in helping smuggling the looted art, golf, and other properties belonging to Jewish families. Gerald Posner, an American journalist, says that Bernardo Nogara, the financial advisor to the Vatican, is believed to have been one of the German dictator's spies. He is believed that they have an institute of a horrifying scheme that allowed the Vatican to invest money in Italian insurance companies that kept assets from the life insurance plans of the eradicated Jewish families. Since the Vatican was an investor and not an direct insurer, they did not need to return any of the money made use the scheme, which is messed up as hell. Number 2, involvement in slavery. Yeah, this wasn't a secret, but to some may not actually know the history deeply of the Vatican's involvement in this type of history. In the early centuries of Christianity, slaves and slaveholders were part of the social fabric of the Roman Empire. The New Testament contains reference to slavery, but it also emphasizes the spiritual equality of all believers. Early Christian communities, including both slaves and free individuals, during the medieval period, the Catholic Church played a role in regulating and mitigating the excess of feudalism. While the church did not explicitly endorse slavery, it existed in a society where slavery was still present, and the church was not actively campaigning against the institution. In other words, they were still pretty much complicit. If they had stepped in and said something, I'm pretty sure the abolition of slavery could have been a lot more sooner. And in 15th century, during the age of exploration, the beginning of transatlantic slave trade, several papal bulls were issued, especially with the Spanish monarchy sending African slaves to their colonies in Latin America to reduce the harm done to the indigenous, but still promoting harm of African people who were stolen from their homes. In more recent times, the Catholic Church was explicitly condemning slavery. Various popes, including Saint Pope John Paul II and Pope Francis, have spoken out against modern forms of slavery, including human trafficking and forced labor. Number 1, involvement in the Indigenous of Canada. The last residential school that was closed in Canada was in 1996, and to put that in perspective, that was the same year Tupac passed away, and TV shows like Friends was a hit. A lot of people don't realize what the residential schools in Canada was, so I'll summarize in one sentence. It was a horrible place used by the Catholic Church to justify their violence on the Indigenous people, especially their children in Canada. It was traumatic as it was disgusting, as these schools were often run by various Christian dominations, with a significant number of them being operated by the Catholic Church. The primary use of residential schools was to assimilate Indigenous children into Western, Christian, and Eurocentric Canadian culture. This often involved the suppression of Indigenous languages, traditions, and cultural practices. Many students experienced physical, emotional, psychological, and violation of their bodies, while individual dioceses and religious orders were responsible for the day-to-day operations of these schools, and the ultimate authority lies within the hierarchical structures of the Catholic Church. The Vatican, as the central governing body of the Catholic Church, plays a huge role in setting broader policies. However, the Vatican also claims documents have been manipulated for political purposes by colonial powers to justify the immoral acts against the Indigenous people that were carried out at these times. Of course, without the opposition said from the authorities, despite the call for reconciliation and land acknowledgement. The need for apologies by the Catholic Church were only made by prevalent modern day and age when the discovery of over 1,900 bodies, especially mainly children, were found at these schools. In a quote by an Anishinaabe woman that I personally have met once, said, "Canada needs to still search the landfills, as there are many more of these Indigenous are casted aside." All caused by the complicity of the Vatican, as well as the Canadian government, not to mention, I hope, peace is made in these communities, as it's very heartbreaking when you see your people eradicated and no one seems to care. But on the bright side, the people are united, will never be defeated, and there are so many who still also call for the justice of these communities who have been vigorously harmed. Well, that's all for today, and considering patience is a virtue, thank you for watching till the very end. My name is Jessa, be sure to like and subscribe and do something good today, and I wish you all the best.